Okay, we're rolling. So, are we waiting for anyone else on the Element 14 side to join?
Yeah, we might want to wait just 1 or 2 more minutes, Ben.
Okay.
Dan will join, but don't wait up for him. He's on another call. He's going to join as soon as he can.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, let's see, it's just 8:37 now. Let's maybe just kick it off at like 8:39.
Marisol and Phil won't be joining because they're in training right now.
In case there's
Yeah, we're recording now.
anything of substance here. Okay, great. So, as I said in the meeting request, just wanted to get everybody together, introduce the two major players, at least through this phase, and then beyond, I'll certainly be intimately involved. But just introduce ourselves, set out a little bit of the framework as to what we're looking for from all you fine folks as it relates to the beta, so on and so forth. And then, of course, if there's anything specific that you guys would like us to address, discuss, opine on, etc., we can certainly address that. I certainly wouldn't expect this to take too terrible amount of time. And with that, I'll just sort of get to it. My name is Lawrence Romine, and this is my second stint here at Altium. I guess if you put it together, this would be the beginning of my 9th year here at Altium, and really done almost all the jobs that Altium has to offer: sales, technical sales, business development, VAR development, application support. Really kind of done it all. Previous to that, I was in the semiconductor distribution business, so a business you guys obviously know intimately well. I was with Insight, which was then shortly right after I left acquired by Avnet. So this was the Mimic company, which I believe they still call Avnet Mimic. So my area of expertise was FPGA sales and support, and then previous to that did design engineer work. So intimately familiar with the sort of businesses that you guys are in: semiconductors, distribution, and of course software, specifically EDA software. And with that, I shall introduce Ben Jordan. I think you're on year 10 or 11, aren't you, Ben?
I'm in my 11th year at Altium. I think I faintly heard someone asking what your name was again there, Lawrence, so I'll just say it again. This is Lawrence.
Okay.
Yeah, Lawrence Romine. And Lawrence, your role as related to CircuitStudio is I'm still personally, because you've rejoined us. What is your role?
I guess that's a relevant question, Ben. So really all things to do, my official title is Director of Global Business Development, and really specifically what that means is I'm in charge of all new product launches. So that would really include all of our new products, and that obviously includes CircuitStudio, as well as I'm responsible for all of our channel sales related to those new products. So all of our new products are being sold through a channel, be it the Element 14 family of companies, or more of a traditional software channel, which we would call a VAR channel. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So as far as everybody on this phone is concerned, and this is relevant to the beta as well, I'm your point of contact for all things, in your case, CircuitStudio or Altium for that matter.
Great. Okay.
Hi,
So,
it's Robin. I've managed to join the call, just to let you know, Lawrence.
Oh, hey, Robin. Nice to hear from you, and I guess we'll see you on Monday.
Indeed. Bring your warm coat. I believe it's something like -7 Fahrenheit, like -22 degrees Celsius.
Well, I can tell you, Robin, as a guy who's sitting here in San Diego, California, I do happen
Enough already.
I do happen to own a coat that I have purchased specifically for when I travel to those parts of the country. We should be okay.
So, Lawrence, I'm going to go on mute, but I have joined. I know Agnes is on the line to help field some of the questions, but I have joined just to listen in. But I'm actually on the other line on another call, but I just wanted to listen in. So.
Yeah, no worries, Robin. Thank you very much. So that's my story. And Ben, his story is probably far more interesting. As I said, he's been with the organization for now 11 years, and as you probably could tell, he's Australian. So he's from the mothership, as it were. Altium was HQ'd in Australia up until just about 6 months ago. So go ahead and introduce yourself and give a little bio.
Yeah, I'll just try and keep it really quick. So I joined Altium as an applications engineer in R&D in 2004, and have basically worked for 8 hours a day in Altium software ever since. So there's probably not much I don't know about how to use Altium tools. I spent a lot of time in technical support as well, and as an FAE, moved to the United States first in late 2005 to help rebuild technical support in the US, and then went on to be an FAE and related roles since then. I've also done a stint in product marketing and content marketing. So you might see my name in Altium-related articles in different publications every now and then as my articles float around. So I've done quite a lot of that, but just recently rejoined our R&D efforts as a product manager, and just at the moment, for this initial release of CircuitStudio, I'm one of the product managers on probably the main product manager really, on CircuitStudio. So I'm kind of a technical point of contact for CircuitStudio, and also at the moment Circuit Maker, which is our entry-level hobbyist / maker product, which was announced back in September at Makers Fair in New York, which you're probably already aware of as well. So if you have any technical questions, and I'm also currently managing the beta for this product, which was launched last week, and some of you are already on the beta program or have at least been invited to it, and would have received emails giving you links to access the beta forum and to download and start installing and playing with the software. And I would really value your input in this at this critical time for us to get this ready for Element 14 to begin selling the tool in February. We really need to get some good solid technical feedback from you guys so we can very quickly find all the areas that we need to make some changes or repaint something a little bit differently, or make sure that it's actually going to serve the purposes for the target audience, the target market that you know you will be selling this to. So that's sort of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that's excellent, Ben. And so that's a great segue into sort of the purpose of this sort of phase that we're in, and you know, why we issued all you guys access to the beta. And then we'll get into a little bit of dog and pony, just to kind of show you some of the sort of key elements of getting logged in, getting licensed, getting all that sort of stuff squared away, and then we can sort of go freeform. But really, what I really wanted to do was just impress upon everybody on the phone that the importance of your roles as we are today. So what I would say is that we are very much in the last mile, or I guess final kilometer, depending on where you are in the world, of the development of this product. And so it is obviously functioning, it is usable, but where we're going with this now is we're just putting the final sort of dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's on the feature sets. And obviously that is exceedingly important as we really try to position this product sort of directly between what you guys are already offering with Eagle. And obviously you have this sort of hobbyist version of Eagle, you have the Eagle Pro versions, and then this is the sort of natural segue into more of a sort of professional product built on our 25-year, actually closer to 30-year history in the EDA market, building products for enterprises. And just below where our sort of higher-end products kick in, which would be Altium Designer, and then down the track a bit, our X2, which I think is a code name for our Uber enterprise version. So where I'm going with this is it's very important. We really do value and want your feedback, particularly because you guys are much more close, or much closer, I should say, to the Eagle users today. And so with that, what I want to first do is make sure, has anybody, how many of you guys have logged in? Or let me ask you this, how many of you have not logged in? That's probably a better question.
I've been able to. I was able to get the installer. I have Altium Live credentials, which I tried to use. It would proceed because it comes to that screen where it asks you for a username and password. And I just provided my Altium Live credentials, which is okay. But then it wouldn't proceed any further than that. It gave me not authorized to download the base scripting system and a few more errors. So I haven't. My name is George Garcia. I work with Ed. Ed off USB.
Okay, George, I'm going to check your account in our Salesforce CRM system because there might be one other thing that's missing from your profile that's blocking that. But you're correct. The Altium Live login, for those of you who already happen to have one, the Altium Live login it's this exact same username and password for accessing CircuitStudio and the beta forum, which is beta forum. Which is.
Why not share a?
Sorry, guys. Go.
Oh, so how you doing?
Let me just bring that up. I guess, can you guys see my screen here?
Yep.
Okay, so it's the same username and password for Altium Live. It's forum.circuitstudio.com. At the moment, you'll just see CircuitStudio Beta. This developers forum is for us internally here at Altium to, when we're doing internal testing or discussing implementation of certain things, we can do that in here. But you guys will see just CircuitStudio Beta. And I can see, some people have joined the beta already from the group who registered their interest outside of Element 14. And you should be able to get in here and look at any of these threads and add your own feedback, like, yes, me too, I've noticed the same thing, or maybe even discuss how something should work with another user if you have a slightly different opinion. All of that is very, very useful, and you can see this is my face on most of these threads. Here at Altium, me and the development team who are in charge of this product, so there's Vlad there, he's one of our key development managers who's also in charge of this, or involved with CircuitStudio. We're very much involved in wanting to give feedback and clarify things and get more information and basically log the tickets to get everything working and resolved in time for release. So you'll see that if we go to, let's go to home. At home, you'll see on the side there's some announcements. The only announcement I've made in this forum so far, which is really just a forum thread, but I pin it as an announcement so it appears in a list on the side here. So if you're new to logging into this forum and you want to download and install the software, click on this announcement here, CircuitStudio Beta starts now, and you'll find the link to download the installer and beta test license file. When we go to release, we'll be generating some licenses for Element 14 staff to use anyway, or we'll solve that problem when the time comes for release. At the moment, however, this CircuitStudio license, which we've built, will last until February 2nd, I believe, which is the target release date, and will expire on that date and no longer work on that date. But in the meantime, you can use that license. We might need to generate actually dedicated licenses for Element 14, so I'll discuss that with Lawrence a bit later, and we'll send you an update if that's the case, only because this license will work only on one network segment for one user at a time. So if you have multiple staff members in on one local area network, you can't all use the same license file. So if that's the case with your team, we'll have to generate a multi-user license or licenses for each individual user, which is, it's no problem. We can do that if we need to. We'll just need a couple of days to get that organized.
Ben?
Yep.
This is Andre Schmeets. I do have a question. This forum that you are showing us, is it hosted at Altium?
Yeah, this is in our own infrastructure, and
okay, because you do know that at Element 14 at Farnell and Newark, we have our own forum, the Element 14 website, which now already has a discussion group on Eagle. Will there be another discussion group on our Element 14 for Altium?
Yeah.
Or will that be mirrored? So we would have two separate forums.
Yeah, let me address that for you, Andre. So bear in mind, this is, and I was going to bring this up. This is our feedback directly, literally directly back into our development group. So as I said, we're in the last mile of beta with this product. So what I would ask from you is, as you were evaluating CircuitStudio, messing with it, playing with it, obviously if you see any obvious bugs, this is the forum in which you would report those. As well as, we want your opinions, Andre and team, on the functionality itself. Did we over-feature it? Did we under-feature it? Is there something that's just simply missing? This is where you give us your feedback directly to development, and you're impacting that development cycle by doing so. Now, your second question, yes. So the idea here is that this will effectively really be, should I say, owned and operated by Element 14. So yes, we're going to have a full community page, a full forum support. In fact, I'm going to Chicago on Monday to meet with Robin about where this installer, where the eval licenses will be downloaded from. But my expectation is that will all be on Element 14's websites in our community page, and that'll be it. I mean, you guys are sort of the alpha and the omega as it relates to this particular product, CircuitStudio. Does that answer your question, Andre?
Okay, yeah, perfectly.
So we could probably consider that it's still a little bit up in the air how the decision of how this is actually implemented, but at the moment the CircuitStudio.com is really just for this forum is just for the beta program and for our internal feedback mechanism. And the way I see it happening is this will stay here in order for Element 14 staff to stay connected with us to report bugs and things that we need to continue to do to maintain the product for you. And in addition to that, when we do updates and release new versions, we will launch beta programs again, and we will need this beta forum just for the beta test group. And my understanding is that's how it's going to be, but general user discussion can still occur in Element 14's already pre-existing forums. I would consider CircuitStudio.com much like you would say CADSoftUSA.com or CADSoft.de. Those websites are still there for the support of users, but also a little bit because CADSoft was a separate company previously to being acquired. So, but it's kind of the same idea, I think, is that the CircuitStudio.com website will still exist, but it will provide information about the product, and probably all the documentation will reside there as well. But as for user discussion, that can happen on Element 14's own forums, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, and the beautiful thing we have here is, unlike your relationship, or I guess you guys own them now, the CADSoft situation, this product has no legacy. So that the idea from my business perspective is that you guys will be building that brand awareness. We will have this website, but it's really, and again, these details will be fleshed out over the next couple of days with Robin and company, but it really, all we're looking to do with this website is maintain internal discussion, as you see here, and really primarily, if there is any traffic coming to this site, they will be directed to your website to interact with the community pages there.
So hopefully that's answered the question pretty well. Also, just going back to the issues of logins. George, was it George Garcia? Did you say your last name was Garcia?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just writing that down so I don't forget to check your profile and make sure you've got access. While we're on that subject, we've worked hard to try and make sure that there's really users of different products that Altium produces in the PCB design world should all just really have one login for everything. That was our goal a few years ago, and that's where Altium Live came from, and that's still the same today. So what happens is you have that username and password, which is your email address and whatever password you set when you get that first invitation email, which should look something like, let's see, just bear with me one second while I look up one of the examples that was sent to me the other day. This is a different one. You get an email. No, this is not the one. Okay, I don't want to waste time on that, but essentially, and many of you have already received it, an email inviting you to join the program, and that gives you a link to activate your account if you don't already have an Altium Live account. Many of you do. It's essentially the same email with a link, and it brings people to a website for establishing their user profile, their initial user profile for this forum here, or for Altium Live, and walks them through this process of setting up their password. Once you've done that, you're then able to execute the installer. You can run the installer, but it does ask you for the same username and password. Once you've done that, the installation is very straightforward, just like any other Windows software. There's a few little options you can select, and you can choose the paths of where it gets installed and where the example files and example libraries and templates would go. And then it proceeds through the installation. It asks if you want to run CircuitStudio. So once you execute the software for the first time, this projects panel will be shown, but it will be blank, and the first place it will bring you to is this My Account page, where it will be telling you that you have no license. So it would look something like, if I delete that, it would look something like available licenses unlicensed. And for a company or person who's purchased licenses for the software, the licenses that they've purchased will be shown in a list here. And there's two different ways. You can actually use that ALF license file that we've emailed to the beta test group or added to that forum thread, and you can add that as a standalone license file. Or you can actually, if your company has a license, you can see in the list of licenses, you can choose a license and activate or reactivate that license. And that just gets the MAC address and hard drive serial number from your computer, sends it into our system to generate the license, automatically sends the license back over the internet connection, and adds the license file into your actual installation of CircuitStudio. And then it would look like this, just as you want to license yes, and then it would show that it's being used by you. It's really very simple. It's that simple. Now I'm licensed, and I can see there's a subscription on that. Some of these things, again, are subject to further discussion with Lawrence, and and Element 14's product management too, because there may be different desires of how subscription should work for such a product that's sold through a channel like Element 14. So I'm now licensed. The main thing to remember to get started with CircuitStudio is how to get back to this start page, because a lot of important things are on this particular menu here. And the start page is always accessible on this view ribbon, and the view ribbon is always accessible no matter what you're doing. So if I'm in this schematic here, I'm working on a little design, the view ribbon is always there. And if you go view, start, it always takes you back to this start page, which currently shows the CircuitStudio.com homepage. We'll have this redirected to the CircuitStudio page at Element 14 come public release. And again, you can get back to my account for licensing. That's probably the most important thing. You can click here to create a brand new empty PCB design project or open an existing project from your hard disk. You can see existing recent projects lists of designs that I've worked on, and we have a few reference designs that are part of the installation. I'm again currently working on this little touch dimmer here. This will become another reference design that's hopefully ready by the time release is done. It's just going to be a little touch sensor light dimming device, and that should also hopefully be added to the build for release. Project documents is just a preview where you can see thumbnail previews of the documents in the different projects in the recently open path. And then extensions and updates is also quite important. As we release new bug fixes or point releases or full versions to the software for customers who are on subscription, they'll see those extensions that are available to them based on their login as well, of course, in these lists. Installed means these are the extensions I currently have installed. This supplier link to Farnell or Premier Element 14. I always get confused with what to call the company. I guess it's all just Element 14. That's an option during installation that I think should probably be done automatically. It's checked by default as part of the CircuitStudio installation, because the idea is that our supply chain linking always goes back to Farnell or Newark or Element 14, depending on where you are in the world, for finding components and prices and availabilities. This Altium developer I've installed because there is an SDK or will be an SDK released for this product, so that other organizations can write additional plugins or add-ons for it. But the future of that at the moment is very vague, and it's not a hard item on the roadmap at the moment. That's only showing, I'm explaining that just in case you're looking at going, what is that? That's only showing because I'm an Altium staff member and I have access to that SDK. You won't see that. Not at this stage at least anyway. Purchased, these things will be removed for the other suppliers. For CircuitStudio.
Pay no attention to those.
these will be removed for CircuitStudio. We want everybody to buy their parts in CircuitStudio designs from Farnell. But other potential add-ons that may be developed in future to get extra capabilities, maybe at extra price points, this is all for further discussion down the road, sometime after release and after the dust settles, and you may decide there's extra things you want to sell as add-ons to this product. Those things can appear in here, and if a person pays for a license for those things, they'll appear in this list available for them to install based on their login. Again, updates and new versions will come through in this updates page here. This is currently showing that I'm fully up to date with the latest build. And also during beta, each time there's a new beta version released, you'll be notified. In here it will say updates, and in parentheses 1 or 2 depending on how many revisions there have been since you actually perform the installation. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's updates for the actual CircuitStudio platform itself, plus any additional extensions which go on top of that. This hardware devices one, I think, should be removed for now. That's to do with FPGA support, which currently is only available in Altium Designer, but may be made available to these CircuitStudio, to the CircuitStudio product down the road, but we're not sure as yet how that's going to work. So in the meanwhile, that in the next beta release or the one after, coming up pretty soon, this should not appear. Just to show you what it looks like, this is the project structure down the side, much like Eagle. Many of you are very familiar with Eagle already, how Eagle has this concept of projects. Altium Designer also has the concept of projects, and Protel had way back in the early days, and so therefore does CircuitStudio. And everything ties together in a project, which is, just for those who are interested, this is actually just like a text file that contains information about what documents belong to it. These can be saved anywhere on your hard disk, and they have source documents being schematics like this one here, and PCB documents, and from those we can generate outputs for manufacturing. So really, to get started, you'll create a project. Let's just have a look at some of these projects which are here. This TouchDim is unfinished, so I'm just going to right-click on that and close all the documents in there. We'll look at that one later maybe. This GSM logger is one of our finished reference designs. This is a hierarchical design. CircuitStudio does provide for multiple page schematics and schematic hierarchy. In CircuitStudio, as with other Altium products, each schematic page, I should say, is actually a separate file on the hard disk, but they're generally all saved together in the same place. But the reason for that is it makes it very easy to reuse the same schematic in multiple different projects. So given this hierarchy option, you can actually bring together things in a block diagram and say this 2x16 LCD display module is going to be a very common circuit in a lot of designs where you need a little LCD display. And so I may save that in some central location and reuse it in multiple different designs. What these are here, these are harnesses. Signal harnesses are similar to buses in that you can add any number of different buses or other nets to those. And if I hover over that, I don't know if that's going to... actually, let me just right-click and go to Properties. Oh, let's just give me the right-click and go to the Properties of the harness entry. I'm a little rusty on these. There's a harness type attribute, so we could repeat and reuse this in different parts of the schematic, and it means wherever this appears, all the same nets will be inside of that. If I hold down the control key and double click on any of these hierarchical blocks, it takes me into the subsheet. Here's the harness type coming through here, and this is a port to get into and out of this schematic page. If I look at that, you can see the harness type is shown there, and this device here is a harness connector. All of these things are available on the home ribbon of every editor, be it schematic library, PCB library. These ribbons all contain all of the most commonly needed commands in one place. For editing and for creating schematics and PCBs. And so this is a harness connector. The harness connector defines what all the, I want to place one, defines what all the signals are that are going into and out of that harness. So that breaks these out into individual wires with net names. And, you know, there's very similar features in Eagle that you'll be familiar with. These are net labels that identify that net, and that net name actually carries through into the printed circuit board as well, so that when I'm on the PCB, when I'm in the PCB and looking at the traces routed on the board attached to that net, I can actually see the net name on those. In fact, yes, here it is. On the Tools menu, there's a cross probe. So I can click on that net and it highlights the same net in the printed circuit board editor. If I hold down Control and do that, it should keep the board open. There it is. It actually left the wrong board open, so that's a little bug I need to report there. But this has highlighted that net in the PCB, and you can actually see the net name shown in all the pads and traces associated with that net. So it's pretty easy to browse around the hierarchy, and cross-probe also works with parts and other things. Let me just close that. I don't want to save it. So it's highlighted you can see all of the pads and mounting holes for that LC display that mounts over this whole board. That's that highlighting for that component. If you want a clear highlighting, by the way, that's always on this view menu, clear. One of the other things that's important, it's a key difference in Altium products. We've always had this concept of a controlled engineering change order. And what that means is, if in a typical professional PCB workflow, if you make changes on the schematic side, you need those changes to propagate to the PCB, but you want to do it in a very controlled way so that you don't tear something up off the board that you didn't intend to tear up off the board. And so while some tools like Eagle have a instantaneous synchronization where you may delete a component on the schematic and it's instantly removed from the board, and other tools that we've had in the past like PCAD did similar things, but we found it annoyed quite a few professional PCB designers because it would tear up routing that was attached to that component. So instead, in Altium Designer and in CircuitStudio, we have an ECO process. So if I change this 3v7 net to be, just for argument's sake, 3v3, that's going to rename that whole VCC net. And these things, because by virtue of a different net name, these would actually be different nets now. So if I save that, this is the little save icon up here, and you also get save on the file menu. There's a project tab, and this project tab is always open as well when you're working with projects. And this has, actually I'm in the wrong place. It's home, sorry, my apologies, it's home, and there's a project drop down. To synchronize between the schematics and the board, if I'm in schematic and want to push changes to the board, I go Project, Update PCB Document. If I'm in the printed circuit board and I want to pull changes from schematic, I can go Project, Import Changes from the project. But there may be changes you make, like pin swapping, for example, on the circuit board, or changing a component footprint directly on the PCB design, and you want to update the schematic to reflect that different footprint in the schematic symbol as well. In that case, you can update schematics and push changes from the board back to the schematic also. In any case, you'll always be presented with this engineering change order dialog that allows you to review all the things that are going to change and double check them and make sure, is that something I really want to execute? And you may find in the list there are some things you do want to execute changes and others you want to leave unchanged. And so you've got that option to disable those items. and this validate as well. So you can sort of do a trial run change and see that if there'd be any problems with that. For example, trying to add a component where the footprint is not yet built and therefore not found in the library. That would be something that if you go validate, it would give you a warning saying footprint not found. So you can go back and solve that problem, make the footprint in the PCB library, and then carry on. Is this, just before I go any further, is this helpful? Any questions so far?
One question I had on the,
so I'm going to rename that back to, actually.
I had one question on the blocks. So you can dive down into the blocks by control clicking. How do you go back up the hierarchy?
It's control click to go through as well. So you can control click on a sheet just to open that sheet, but you can control click on a port or sheet entry. These are sheet entries which map to ports in the underlying sheets. So this is a port here, and if I want to browse where that goes, I can control double click on that, and it puts the mouse cursor right over.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, you'll notice control click highlights things as well. Sorry. There's a control. It's control click. So if I control, maybe on. Yeah, maybe that functionality is not fully defined yet, but you see when you do that, it highlights the connectivity. So I control double clicked on GSM, and this is not working fully, and I need to look into this with R&D because all of those nets should be highlighted. Yeah, but if I control double click on VBAT, it takes me up to the parent, but it should have highlighted all the VBAT connections. Don't know why it didn't there. Like this, it's highlighted those and dimmed out everything else. Yeah, so I need to look into that. But it's pretty easy to get around. You don't have to use hierarchy. You can have multiple sheets. You can have multiple sheets and just use ports. You can use just net labels to connect things globally, or you can use ports to connect off sheet to other sheets using ports with the same net name, much like you would do in Eagle. Or you could use off-sheet connectors, which is something that was originally invented to be compatible with OrCAD schematics back when we first did an OrCAD importer for Altium Designer. So OrCAD has this concept of an off-sheet connector, which is just a flat, non-directional. It's like a wire that goes across sheets, whereas ports have directions and therefore are involved in electrical rule checking because an input port is treated as a source that can drive a net on that page. So there were other questions there too.
Yes, Benjamin, let me ask you, as far as the hierarchy goes, like these modules that you have here, you have several, you have an LCD, you have a general purpose IOs, and is the layout also treated as a block? Is the layout for those specific hierarchical blocks also treated as part of the block, or are those separate?
Not really. Not really in CircuitStudio. In Altium Designer they can be, but not in CircuitStudio because that's considered a multi-channel design feature, which was not kept in CircuitStudio.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ben. To that point, this is Dana here. Is there a comparison what features have been stripped out or kind of optimized in CircuitStudio versus Designer?
We have a document where we vaguely, not vaguely, we've had a lot of actually quite lively internal discussion about what was meant to be included and what should be different. And we do have a matrix, but it has not finally settled. And actually getting feedback from you guys will help us settle on that. But given the target price point and I guess user persona that we're after with this product, or that you're after with this product, that largely determines what goes into it. And so we do have a document. I don't think I can share it as it is right now, but closer to release time, we will have something for you to see in that regard if you want. Bear in mind this is quite different, even though it's built on Altium Designer technology. And many of if you have used Altium Designer at all, you'll see a lot of the same right-click menu pop-up items, a lot of the same object types. The schematic document file format is identical, so you can open Altium Designer schematics and PCB and schematic libraries from Altium Designer can be opened in CircuitStudio as well, of course, and used. So there's a lot of, we've retained all that compatibility. We do, however, and I need to point this out, have a new file format for PCB documents called CS PCB doc, and an Altium Designer PCB doc straight from Altium Designer will not open in CircuitStudio. It will just treat it like a binary file that's attached to the project. And if you double click on it, it'll look for an external application to open it in Windows.
And you addressed my second point. I mean, I was trying to do exactly that. And
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. However, what we have internally, we have in our internal release of Altium, it hasn't been released yet, but for the next version of Altium Designer, we are actually going to have exporters in Altium Designer for CircuitStudio. So you can save an Altium Designer PCB doc as a CircuitStudio doc. I'm pretty sure that's on the cards for the next version of Altium Designer, but you will have to translate.
Sorry, just one more thing. So would Circuit Maker also be kind of similarly treated?
Yes, Circuit Maker also in the next phase of beta will have its own file format, which again will only open in Circuit Maker for the PCB docs in Circuit Maker. However, consumption of components from libraries is compatible. And to that end, also, if you look at the file menu in CircuitStudio, you'll see that we do have the Vault Explorer. Now, Altium Designer is, we've built a lot of our bigger customer base for Altium Designer comes from the need to manage their electronic design data. And so those are usually larger companies with teams of engineers who are dedicated to doing schematics, dedicated to doing PCB design, and they even have CAD librarians who spend their days building and refining component models. And so those people are candidates for our Vault product for managing the design data. Now, the Vault Explorer is in CircuitStudio, but that's because we wanted our content from our content team to be available to CircuitStudio customers as an added value. And so at this stage, the decision has been, if I go to Vault Administration here, and it takes me to Preferences for Vaults, this button is going to be disappearing in the next beta version, because the only Vault that users of CircuitStudio can connect to currently is our Altium Content Vault, where we provide component models and templates and device sheets for reference designs.
Yeah, can you show them some of that content, Ben, just
Yeah,
so they see it?
so I'm in
show them
it.
the
I'm in
supplier
it now.
information, all the,
Yeah.
yeah.
So normally a user will see, you won't see this internal development folder. I see that because I'm an Altium staff member again, and this is all based on my login. But this is all work in progress stuff that may be not finished or a bit dirty, so that's why it's normally hidden from view. Once something internally is completed by our content team and they're happy to publicly release it, they move it out of these folders into the folders that customers can see. What you will see is board templates. So there's some really nice content in here for if someone wants to do a PCIe 104 card, they can see that there's a reference design released in here as a template that they can get. And this, I don't know why I can't see the previews of these documents in here, but basically this is a PCIe 104 form factor template that they can start with for their circuit board and schematics. So these things can save them a lot of time. There's a reference, one of the reference designs in here is this PCIe 4-port serial interface I did some time ago using the short mini half card in here. And so the PCIe card outline and the bracket mounting and everything was all part of the template. So that was a huge help. But the real value is in all this content for components. There's a couple of libraries of generic capacitors and resistors of different footprints and sizes in here. And we basically have the whole E192 range of resistor values, for example. And users can, let's look at this one again. Users can preview is what I wanted to see. You can see the symbol. You can see the footprint in 3D. And I'm holding down the Shift key and using the right mouse button to rotate that. So you see that it's got a 3D model attached. This is the footprint view in 2D. And I can right-click and place that. This is grayed out because I don't have a schematic open. But I can right-click and place that directly in my design and use any of these thousands of components. There's a couple of 100,000 components in here and counting from a lot of different manufacturers. So let's say I wanted to place an LMV722 dual op amp. I could do a search for that. I get a couple of different results here in the search results, and you can see how pretty quick the search. We've got a search indexing server running on the server with the Vault, so search results are pretty fast. And I can see there's a whole lot of different options available here in different footprints or packages. So look at one of those, and this is the view of that op amp from TI. And again, there's a basic extruded 3D model attached to that one. So we can consume content from the Altium content team, which is completely free, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of parts in here that customers can search for.
You know, it's free, Ben, as long as they're current on their subscription service, correct?
Well, if you have an active license on CircuitStudio, right, you can access this content.
Right. So this is the value add for you guys in year 2, which is, you know, these components, and we have industry research, and actually one of our very significant customers did research and determined that each time an organization is to make a library component, and you can see, you know, this is sort of very vast information. So obviously someone's built this 3D model, someone's built the footprint, someone's built the schematic symbol, etc. Then of course appended all of this sort of what I call manufacturability information. So the availability, obviously your specific information, your part number, I'm talking Farnell. what did we determine? It was a $3,000 cost to an organization.
Yeah, it's quite high. If you have staff spending time building parts, it's quite expensive.
So, obviously our nominal subscription or your nominal subscription fee becomes very justifiable if you say, well, have you used one of these hundreds of thousands of components, then it's paid for itself plus 50%. So it really becomes a no-brainer. And our renewal rates when we began to invest in the content experience went up significantly. So this is a huge part of the value and obviously advantage that we have with a client that would be moving from an Eagle sort of type product into more of a professional, not to belittle Eagle products at all, but more of a professionally oriented program such as CircuitStudio. Do you want to show some of the supplier information as well, Ben, even if it's going to have some of the competitive information on it?
Yeah, so, and we're actually working in R&D to make sure this only goes through, for CircuitStudio again, only will go to supplier information for element 14. But normally when I hover over a part that was placed from the vault, I think this one doesn't have any supplier links right now. If I double click on that component, it brings up the parameters or properties of that part, including which footprint it's using. And I can see just in this reference design, all this information's been added manually, but you can see here there's a link to the data sheet on the Farnell website. If I make that parameter visible, that link actually works directly in the schematic here, and you can see it actually highlights when I hover over it. It's not behave. Oh, there it is. A pop-up appears to actually follow the link after a quick browse, and it opens right here in the user interface. So I can open the data sheet, go to the Premier Farnell or Element 14 web page for this product if I want to. I can have everything at my fingertips. Now, normally in the Vault, we have, it's File menu, Vault Explorer. If I want to find information about this, I can go to Supply Chain, and I can see here, actually at the moment this one is only showing Newark and Farnell, so maybe our content team's already started doing some filtering on that. But I can see currently or up to date to the nearest, I think, 10-minute period, how many are in stock and what the current price is, which is pretty cool.
It is really cool. And although, by the way, that will show the regional currency. So obviously he's looking at Farnell here, and it shows pounds. And then, of course, in the Newark, it's going to be in U.S. dollars. And I think you can filter that as well, but not overly important at this point.
Yeah, there are some user preferences for some of this stuff.
Yeah. So also, Ben, are we going to have a supplier search in the traditional sense that we have an Altium Designer?
I don't think so. I think that's reserved for Altium Designer.
Just through the Vault Explorer then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if we were, it would be in this list of panels here. But
there was just another question around the supplier search / Vault Explorer. In Altium Designer, we had a place where customers could key in a ID and a password so they kind of access their contract pricing and things like that. Is that still valid? Not valid?
I think I know what you're talking about. In preferences under suppliers, yes, that's still here.
Exactly.
But now it's just Newark options.
So, I mean, is this active? Because
it should work, yeah. It should work exactly the same way. I would try it and give us feedback.
Yeah, we will do.
And so Ben, I'm just conscious of everybody's time.
Yep.
And I probably would want to touch, because obviously a huge competitive advantage is this stuff you're showing, for sure, but the 3D stuff as well.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just touch on, unless anybody has any objections to that. And there's some. And look, it's your meeting. It's just we've been at it for right at an hour, and I just want to make sure everybody's okay with that.
So, as you may be aware,
Hold on, Ben.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is David Konecki here from Munich. Perhaps you could give the sort of 10,000 meter view of what are the significant features in CircuitStudio which you see as differentiators against Eagle on one side, against all the other products on the market, and what you see as the top 3 selling points that you go to a customer and you want to show.
Yeah.
3D is obviously one of them.
Yep.
What are the others?
Yeah, absolutely. 3D. 3D is a big point.
The content.
This content of a couple of 100,000 plus vetted ISO 9001 quality assured components. Supply chain linking to Farnell, and
yeah, I mean
it's what screams in my mind, but I'm reluctant to say, is a much more modern, nicer, easier user interface.
Well,
that's a very
yeah,
subjective.
Ben, I'll say it. Look, I mean, here's the reality. If you look at, and I'm from Texas, so I only know how to be very direct, which is, if you look at your CADSoft collateral today, it very much says you're accessing professional features. So it's almost sort of saying, look, it's a hobbyist sort of product, but it has professional features. The distinct difference here is this is a commercial product. And it is, and anybody on the horn here that's had any familiarity with Altium Designer, this screams Altium Designer. And so what we're really saying here is that this is a professional product meant for professionals, built on Altium's 30-year history of developing professional PCB design products. And really what you have here is a very professional workflow.
Yeah.
Obviously, huge efficiencies in how you search for and access your specific components, Farnell components. And then, of course, the 3D and then the outputs of the manufacturing files and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I want to add to that also. You can see outputs here. There's a lot more in terms of outputs and configurability of the outputs from this tool. In addition to, and just I've mentioned design rule checking because it's on home view for PCB. PCB design rules in Eagle are very easy to set up in some regards. In fact, I've got it open right here.
Yeah, and just while you're doing that, Ben, let me add one more thing. This is, by the way, I'm not trying to avoid your question. This is the $10,000 question, or £10,000 question, as it were. Robin's been on me for 2 weeks at least to get all of this marketing collateral over to you guys, where we spell all that out in painstaking detail. And I don't know if Robin's still on the phone, but I actually got an email last night from our creative teams in Shanghai and in Kiev that information is now ready to go, and I do anticipate we'll have that today. So you guys should be getting a big care package from me through Robin and Agnes. I'm hoping by the end of the day. And I'm in sales, so for me to actually give you a time frame and promise you something, it means it's real. So you should be seeing all that
argue about
very quickly. What's that?
You could always argue about that.
Yeah, you guys are going to be getting that stuff real soon.
Just really quickly, this is definitely a big selling point for differentiating a professional tool that professional PCB designers need. This is really easy to configure things like clearances. This is just one example, but it's very inflexible. You can't define this differently for different nets or different areas of the board, just as one example. So Eagle still requires a lot more effort, mental effort, during the design process for the person designing. Our design rule editor comes from Altium Designer, and it has many things which are very intuitive and easy to set up, like this matrix of clearances, for example. However, we can also scope things by nets and layers on the board. So it makes it, this is just, again, I'm just doing one little tiny comparison, but you can see the list of available rules and rule scoping, and you can add any number of rules and scope them and prioritize them. So the design rules editor in Altium land is far more configurable. You can make it as simple as possible with a very basic default set of rules that would work for any kind of normal design that doesn't have any really strict requirements. But you can also go and design the most elaborate mixed signal board that has sensitive RF on one area and analog and high-speed nets in some other area, and also may have a power supply that has to maintain safety clearances. So it makes it useful and easy to get things right the first time for a much broader range of product types that need to be designed. So, but it's like, it's hard to do, just in this little bit of time we have together today, to really do more than scratch the surface on these things. But there is a lot more comprehensive, configurable and professional sort of level features like that in this tool that, maybe are a little bit obscured by having such a nice modern ribbon-based user interface. But it's, again, perhaps it will help you if we work to put together a matrix that does more directly compare the tools. But again, those things can be a little misleading when it's not exactly apples to apples. It's more like apples to pears. But hopefully that helps.
Lawrence, this is Agnes. I was just listening in, and I think it might be helpful to for us to review the marketing deck that you're going to be sending over in the next couple of days. The top 3 features and just the differentiation points for CircuitStudio versus Eagle versus the other premium suites that customers might have available, I think it's going to be a big goal for us. But I'm wondering, why don't we review what your marketing folks are suggesting and maybe have another session like this to maybe flesh out and dive deeper into some of the differentiating features that we're all going to be agreeing on.
Yeah, look, Agnes, absolutely. Now, I would assume that would be more of a you and me and potentially Robin kind of call, or would that be for this larger group?
Well, so for our larger group, I think it is somewhat critical that the folks that are doing part of the beta group, kind of align and agree on a technical side that those are the features that we definitely want to be playing up. So
gotcha.
I do foresee this being kind of a commercial and technical feedback.
Sure. Yeah, so absolutely, Agnes. What I would typically do in a product launch like this is, we're just kind of getting these guys and gals exposed. Obviously, we really want their feedback after they've had a chance to interact with the product. I'm going to get you that marketing material ASAP, as I said, I'm hoping today. Then you and I and whomever else needs to be involved can certainly review that. Then we'll do more of a ready for prime time call just like this. So be reviewing the positioning, showing them the assets that we've all agreed on that are on your website, showing the community page, and just sort of properly launch it from a commercial perspective. Is that kind of where you're going, Agnes?
That's what I was thinking, yes.
Yeah, look, 100%. We're speaking the same language, and as I'm doing so, Ben's just trying to distract everybody with shiny objects.
I'm sorry.
No, you caught my attention as well. So go ahead, Ben.
No, it's fine. Again, like you said, Lawrence, I'm just aware of people's time. So, were there any other questions, or does anyone need any further assistance getting access to the tool and making sure their logins work so you can install it and start playing with it?
The 3D tool that you're demonstrating, what type of output compatibility is available for it?
That is a really good question. So all these component models you see here are in the actual footprints in the library, and these are brought in using STEP, and the colored models are STEP AP214, which, so basically users can download and consume content from 3D Content Central and other places like that, or from other CAD tools for doing their mechanical models, and those go into components. So every time you place that component, the 3D model is there. It's part of the component. To export, I've got to check that one, because I think see in 3D, let me go into 2D mode again and do save as. Let me just check. I'm not sure if the step export's enabled for CircuitStudio.
I don't think that
it isn't.
Ben, but you can import the case and interact.
And that's the important key, is that the electronics designer has the ability in this tool to do full 3D clearance checking. So if I place, I should be able to place 3D body here. Where is it? I'm still getting used to this myself. Okay, not as a free body, but if I place a component which happens to be, you can make a component which is an enclosure and place that as a part in your design. And that makes sense because it is a bill of materials item. It's something that has to be purchased to put this together. But if you can see the board here, and I've got everything colored by copper layer right now. So I go back into 2D mode. I'm just using the 2 and the 3 button to put things in different modes here. That component is probably locked. I want to move it. Yeah, LCD. So it's locked. Now I've unlocked it so I can move that LCD. So I'm moving the actual LCD component with its 3D body. I'll just make the polygon unpaured for now because it would have broken the polygon. And you can see all these things just went red. That's a design rule violation, and it's based on the 3D clearance of that LCD module and these components, and also copper clearances as well. If I hit 3, I can actually see that in 3D, and I can see that there's an interference with these capacitors and that connector, and it tells me by how much. It's probably hard to see on GoToMeeting, but that says 9.492 mil. And so the design rule checker will actually enable 3D clearance checking of any other mechanical object that's added to the design as a component.
And that could also include potentially a step model or 3D model of another board. So if you have board-to-board mating concerns, high-profile components between those boards, that sort of thing. Correct, Ben?
Yeah, if you have a 3D model of the other board, it can be treated as a component. So that's really good if you're working on modules that stack up much like Arduino shields or things like that.
So just in interest of time, I had one last question. Is questions related to the tool, should we send it directly to Ben, or should we start posting it on the forum?
Please post them directly on the beta forum, because if you send them to me, only I will see them, and I can respond to that. But it will actually benefit the entire beta community for them to see your questions as well, because that will help them learn more about the tool, but it will also confirm if other people are having the same issue, that it can also help us with R&D efforts. If we see that 5 people have done the same thing but with different designs and found the same bug, it's very easy for us to then reproduce it, and it comes straight down to the piece of code that needs to be fixed during the beta, and that's critical, especially given the release timeline that we have.
Ben, let me ask you, for the installation issue I'm having, would you like me to post it also to the forum, or should I email you directly for that? Also to the forum, I'm assuming?
Yeah. For that, yeah, you can post that to the forum. That would be fine. And just so that you guys know, every time someone posts on that forum, I get an email from the forum as well automatically. So it also comes to me anyway.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
All right, Ben.
No, we're good. We greatly appreciate the presentation and putting this together to give us a really good idea of what's coming on. Thank you. We greatly appreciate it.
All right, folks. Really appreciate everybody taking the time and being so generous with your time, really. And as I said at the onset, your feedback is not done, and we're not soliciting it because we like you, although we do. We really, really, really value and need your feedback, particularly as it relates to what it's looking like relative to Eagle. So light up that beta forum, please.
Appreciate it very much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.